Wait a moment if you can, or
I've just opened the webinar now, Octavia.
sorry, because you are using the old presentation, I think, because it's not updated.
Okay, excuse me for a second, sorry. Good morning, everybody. I would just like to welcome you all to our second information webinar on the first MUSAE Open Call. So this morning you'll be hearing from 4 of our MUSAE team members who will give an overview of the first open call. So firstly, you will hear an overview of the MUSAE project, followed by information on the thematic tracks. A colleague will then discuss the technologies and finally some advice on how to submit a proposal. At the end of the presentation, there will be time for question and answers. So please feel free to put a question into the Q&A box. Finally, I'd just like to make everyone aware that this webinar will be recorded. And I will now hand you over to our first presenter, Tatiana.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tatiana. I'm a team member from Politecnico di Milano. Next slide, please. So I'm going to shortly present you about the project of MUSAE, sort of the objective and what we're aiming for. And next slide, please. And first of all, we want to bring you some curiosity why we decided to give a name of MUSAE to our project. And the reason was that we were inspired by the muses, which is the inspirational goddesses of different types of art, such as literature, science, and art from the Greek religion and mythology. So we were thinking that we could bring the art and different types of art to inspire the innovation nowadays and bring it to the companies to work together with an artist. And next slide, please. So in our project in MUSAE, we have 10 partners from 6 different countries. As you can see, we cover all the major expertise. We have experts and partners in design, in arts, and in different technologies that we have in our project, such as robotics, artificial intelligence, and wearables. And next slide, please. Nutrition. And nutrition, yes. MUSAE's overall goal is to create a human-centered factory model with the help of a new method that we're developing right now, the design futures art-driven methodology, in order to help companies to bring innovation. And one of the main aims is to integrate this model into the digital innovation hubs in Europe, in order to help companies to innovate and to anticipate the innovative products, and especially in the field of future of food in our project. And as you can see in our project, we cover 3 key main elements, which are people that we have in our project, and also that we will be working with an artist. We have technologies, designers, food experts, and as well, as I said, we have 3 different technologies in our project: is artificial intelligence, robotics, and wearables. And also we have the environments of the ecosystem that we are covering in our project, these digital innovation hubs, starts, and different universities. So throughout the residencies, you will be interacting with different types of actors and stakeholders throughout the project. And the next slide, please. So sort of the overall goal, as I said, is to support companies and small and medium enterprises and startups to envision the future scenarios, not only according to the technological development, but also to help them how to meet social and sustainable challenges in the innovation that they do. Because we see it as a very crucial and important component nowadays to think holistically about innovation, which is not only related to technological development, but also different kind of challenges that we should anticipate and foresee in the work that we do. And our project is supported by Horizon Europe through STARTS initiative of the European Commission. Next slide, please. And overall, we have 5 sort of overarching objectives of the project. The first one is, of course, to set up the MUSAE factory model into digital innovation hubs to foster this collaboration between artists and the companies, but in a very structured and coherent process. The second objective is to develop, implement, and validate the design futures art-driven method, which we have been working with our artistic and design partners right now. The third objective is to pilot finally the model in order to explore these challenges in the domain of food as medicine and to develop innovative solutions and prototypes of the products and services. And the fourth objective is to create the links between the MUSAE model and MUSAE project together with a START ecosystem. So to explore the potential of how we can merge the two ecosystems and also to transfer the model into European digital innovation hubs. And finally, related to that, the final objective is to disseminate the MUSAE factory model in order to allow its broader acceptance after the project and to ensure the sustainability of our model that we are developing and also the project. And next slide, please. So the thematic area of MUSAE project is food as medicine. And the reason why we have chosen to concentrate on this topic is because we see food as being linked to planetary, but also personal, individual, human well-being. So we cannot really separate these two aspects because we cannot achieve individual personal well-being without planetary well-being. So that's why we ask artists and also us that we work with this topic to look holistically at this domain and propose new innovative solutions and also how we can envision future scenarios in this topic. And the next slide, please. So as I said, we expect to develop in the first residency the new scenarios in the topic of food as medicine according to the 3 thematic tracks, which will be uncovered later by our partner from University College of Dublin. And briefly, they're reducing carbon footprint in dietary behavior, role of food and holistic human well-being, and rethinking the food chain in our environment. But later we will go on in details in each of the track. And the next slide, please. One of the core elements of the MUSAE project and the MUSAE factory methodology is the DFA method, how we call it, or it's design futures art-driven method. And this method is where we merge design futures and art thinking approaches in order to support and train artists during this process of residencies to work together with the companies. So in our consortium, we have experts in design futures and experts in art thinking, and design futures is coming from Politecnico di Milano, and art thinking approaches is coming from University of Barcelona and GLON, for the experts in artistic collaboration and art-driven approaches. And we have been working to merge these two different but also similar methodologies in order to create something very innovative to support artists. So we will first implement this method during the first residency experiment and also co-create with an artist based on the method that we are developing. Next slide, please. And so the whole MUSAE project consists of 2 pilots. We call them art tech experiments. So here you can see we divided them in the first art tech experiment and the second art tech experiment. And these 2 pilots will shape the core methodology of the project. So this is where actually we will be testing the DFA method, design futures art-driven method that I was talking about, and also create in the first residency the future scenarios to envision challenges and potentials of the topic of food as medicine. And in the second part, we will develop the concepts within these scenarios. And later on, as a third step, we will develop it will be the prototyping phase of the concepts. So here you can see that the residency involves a lot of different aspects, such as mentoring, such as the artistic work, also collaboration with the companies, and also interacting with the method, of course. And at the end of the first residency, we expect to have 10 scenarios by artists. And later on, we expect to have 10 future concepts based on the scenarios and then 10 prototypes. Next slide, please. And in the end of the whole project, this is our goal. What we will be delivering is a MUSAE factory model, which we will be integrating into digital innovation hubs, but also disseminate through the universities and STAR centers. And the MUSAE factory model consists, of course, first of the factory core method, design futures art-driven method, with the process, tools, and guidelines on how to use the method and how to implement the method. Then, of course, it will include open call and residency format, so how to conduct open calls for the artist, but also for artists and companies, how to do the matchmaking, how to provide the residency format to sustain and conduct art tech experiments. Then training and mentoring guidelines, so how to support artists and companies in applying the method to actually develop scenarios and concepts. Then it will also include the DFA projects and use cases, because we will develop scenarios and concepts. So it will include sort of the best case studies on how it can work and what works. And then also finally, it will include the stakeholder network that we are building now, which will include the list of the artists and different experts in nutrition, in technologies, in design and art, that later on the people and the companies and digital innovation hubs who would like to use this model, they could reach out and use the network for their best use. And I think that's it from Polimi. Next slide. Yes. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Do you hear me okay? Tatiana, can you hear? Yes. Okay, very good.
Yes.
Good morning. My name is Lorraine Brennan and I'm based in University College Dublin in Ireland. And my background is in the area of human nutrition. So we're looking after the thematic tracks in MUSAE. So as Tatiana indicated, the thematic tracks are divided into three, and what we're trying to do here is really to think in a holistic fashion. So rather than just thinking of food on its own, we're trying to move into thinking of food as part of a larger system. So we're taking in essence, a food systems approach here. So we have three tracks, which I'm going to briefly go through some aspects of those three tracks in the next few slides. So the first one is reducing the carbon footprint in dietary behavior. And as we know, the world population is going to increase to approximately 10 billion by 2050. This means that we really need to increase our food production so that we can feed this increasing world population. However, we do know that the production of food is one of the major contributors to environmental damage, and the production of food alone contributes approximately about 20 to 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions. So we can't simply just increase food as we normally do. So we need to indicate or come about a transformation in our food system so that we can reduce the burden of food production on the environment. So in particular, animal products are estimated to be responsible for over half of the overall food-related emissions. So we also need to think about what we are eating from as a population, and we need to induce a transformation in our dietary patterns. So with that, there are major challenges to doing that, and major challenges in trying to induce dietary behavior, but also in the context of the larger planet. So if we think about it, we have divided up our challenges into three very broad challenges, and they're indicated here. The first is that environmental and health benefits may not go hand in hand. And by that, I mean that a diet that is environmentally good or good for the environment may not be totally beneficial from our health perspective. So for example, if we cut out meat and meat products completely from our diet, we will be deficient in some essential nutrients. So it is more difficult than what we would think about. So we need to start thinking about a system approach to this. In challenge 2, then, we've indicated that certain low carbon footprint diets can have high land and water use, and this can increase stress on these resources, and this can in turn lead to land degradation. So again, we need to be thinking about what if we shift to certain types of foods or increasing production of certain types of foods, are they having an impact on our land degradation? And challenge 3 then is indicating that while we can shift to alternative meat products, we're still not sure if a lot of these alternative meat products actually are beneficial for health. So we need to examine the health benefits of such products. So with challenges, there's always huge opportunities and opportunities for change. And we've indicated on the bottom right here some of those opportunities. So opportunity one would be to encourage consumers to consume local seasonal products from their local markets and to grow some of their own produce. So that's what we mean when we say shop local. Opportunity two would be, it's a real opportunity for us to diversify our diets, so to increase the diversity of vegetables that we're consuming, etc. And opportunity three calls in fortification and novel processing of foods so that we can address some of the gaps that we know that could happen when we shift to more sustainable diets. So with that, then we've also posed three questions that can that rise from these opportunities. And these are how can we switch to more sustainable diets while meeting our nutrient requirements? How can we produce foods with lower carbon footprints? And are new meat alternatives healthy? So our second challenge then is role of food in holistic well-being. And when we think about holistic well-being, we think about more than just food. So we're thinking about the physical, emotional, social, mental, and spiritual aspects of well-being. And we know that food and diet has a huge impact on diseases, and more recent data will show at a worldwide level that poor diet quality has been linked to increase of many chronic diseases, and in particular, diseases that are non-communicable. And what I mean by poor quality diet is diets that are low in whole grain, low in fruit and vegetables, and high in salt intakes. So we have a huge opportunities here to look at how we can shift dietary behavior to more healthier dietary patterns that would in turn lead to reduced risk of many chronic diseases. So what we can ask in this context would be, how can we enable people to make healthy food choices? How can we develop personalized approaches so that we're giving individuals recommendations back that are tailored to them and help them in the process then to make healthier choices? And how can we develop new and innovative approaches to communicate the benefits of food and to communicate the scientific evidence that underpins the importance of food to health and well-being? And then our third track is rethinking the food chain in our environment. And by this, what we mean is that our global food chain involves many stages, including production, processing, packaging, distribution, retail, and waste. And we know that, as I said earlier, that our population is going to increase. We need to think about how this food chain is going to change, or should transform and change as we move to increasing our food production. There are huge challenges, and we've seen that recently with the war and the subsequent food insecurity that led from that. We are living through price increases at the moment in food and the knock-on effects that has on social impacts, but also on our change in dietary behavior as a result of increasing food prices. So there are lots of things we can do here and we can think about, but we do need to think about the challenges as well. So some of the challenges, for example, would be, how can we make the food chain more resilient to political instability? How can we make it more resilient to pandemics such as the COVID-19, so that we're not running the risk of having severe interruptions in our food supply chain? Food insecurity is a major problem, and there are still many people that are affected by food insecurity. And by that, I mean they simply don't have access to healthy food. And this is an issue that needs to be thought about correctly in the context of our food chain. As I said earlier, our prices of food have increased in the last 2 years, and as have the cost of living. So these prices in food are what we call shocks to the food chain. So again, we need to make the food chain a bit more resilient so that the consumers don't pick up these shocks. Shorter food supply chains have the opportunity to potentially help alleviate some of these issues. And finally, then, food waste is a major issue. And it's estimated that 1/3 of the food that is produced is actually wasted. So in that context, then, we need to think about how we can reshape the food chain. We need to think about how we can develop new innovations to reduce food waste? How can we imagine a future where short supply chains play a role? And what innovations are needed to support food security for all in our growing populations? So that's where I'm going to finish up, and I'll hand over to our next speaker.
Okay, thank you. My name is Maria Bulgheroni. I am responsible of research and development in Abacus, that is one of the three partners in MUSAE, bringing technological expertise. Which are the technology we will look at? We will look at the technology that are under strong development in the last time. There will be robotics, wearable sensor, and artificial intelligence. Sometimes they work together, sometimes they work separately. The idea here is to supply you a portfolio of possibility that may be used to implement a solution to the challenge that Lorena was introducing before. So we may start from robotics. Robotics is represented in MUSAE by two partners. On one side by PAL Robotics, that develop robots for different purposes, and on the other side by the University of Manchester, that take more care of the relation between the robot and the human. So what we can do with the robots? As you know, robots are able to perform tasks in different fields, manufacturing, so industry, warehouse, healthcare, but also agriculture, in dealing with the land, or in collecting fruit and vegetables. Also, the robots are characterized by the capability to work alone. So you may think of a robot standing alone doing some task, or they may cooperate. There is a strong research open on collaborative robots now. That is the idea to find the possibility to have a robot working together. Overall, the idea in introducing robots in manufacturing industry and in everyday life is to take away monotonous and tedious workload from humans, such a way to increase the capability and the possibility of human work. Next slide, please. A specific area of robotics that may be of strong interest here is the one dealing with interaction between human and robot. So the capability of a robot to acquire, mostly through artificial intelligence indeed, to acquire cognitive and social capability to interact. Now robots are starting to be used in service, and are starting to be used also at a social level. There is a research working on the possibility to use a robot to assist elderly people, for example. And robot, in the case of elderly people, for example, thinking of nutrition, may help to give reminders about cooking, about drinking, about eating, that are all functions that with some cognitive decline we may lose. And at the same time, they may use it to motivate. For example, younger people, children are very sensitive to robots, and using robot may be a way to motivate them to do something. Next slide. The second area is the one of wearable sensor. Normally, when we think of wearable sensor, we think of a smart band, smart watch, chest band, tattoo in the last time, but always on the human body. Okay, for sure, we may use a sensor on human body, but the way we would like to think of wearable sensor in MUSAE is wider, because they are sensor maybe also on animals, also on the land, also on the plants. Here are just a few examples coming from the print, scientific print. For example, you may have a sensor on your teeth, helping you to understand the composition of your food. So it may be a different way to understand what you are eating. Or we may monitor the way animals move and the condition of life of animals. This may be very useful for farming. And we may look at the condition of plants. It's possible to put a sensor on the plants to know about their physiology. but it's possible to have also information on waste, on humidity, on temperature, on all the variables that may influence the agriculture. So the idea and the suggestion is to think of wearable as a very wide possibility to monitor something. So to get information on what is happening around our central challenges. Next slide. And the last technology is artificial intelligence. And again, okay, if you look at the definition of artificial intelligence, you may find a lot of different definitions. For example, here, our artificial intelligence partner, that is University of Barcelona, say that artificial intelligence is a simulation of human intelligence processes by machine, especially computer system algorithm. Artificial intelligence is also machine learning, is also natural language processing, is speech recognition, and is computer vision. So there is a lot of application of artificial intelligence. And also, it may be used together with a robot, as we have seen a human-robot interaction, and to sensor, because a sensor just apply data, and this data may be processed to get useful information. There is a lot of research, but also now a lot of market product, for example, that are able to give you information about the composition of food by means of just a photo. And so we may use artificial intelligence to drive our interaction with the food, maybe. So to improve the way we interact with food. So the idea here is not to tell now what the technology may do, because this technology are in a continuous evolution, but just to open your mind and our mind to see how this technology may help in the challenges we have seen before. So the idea is to use technology as a tool to cover the challenges on nutrition we said before. And now I finished.
Okay, thank you for the presentation of the thematic tracks and the technology. Now I'm going to present how to submit a proposal and proposal format for this open call. Next slide, thank you. So what is this open call about? We want to select 10 artists to participate in a 7-month residency program. They will develop 10 scenarios based on the 3 thematics and 3 technologies already presented. And each project will receive a lump sum of 40,000 of euros. In case you have any additional requests on information and so on, you can also find the official documentation inside our website. That is MUSAE on START's website. Next slide, please. Okay, so first of all, who can apply? The eligibility criteria, you can find them on the documentation that is present on the website, but just a summary of it is a natural person can apply, can be a self-employed individual or freelancer, if we want to say, that undertakes artistic activities. Second, can be a legal person under the NACE code artistic creation. It's important to see if this legal person or freelancer is eligible, in the sense that it needs to be inside the countries that are eligible for the Horizon Europe funding. At this link, you can find all the countries that can be inside this eligibility. Also in the proposal format questions, you can find the different countries you can select, and there is also there is also an option of others. So in case you don't find your country, you can select that option and then write your own country to see. We will see if it's eligible or not. Third, sorry. The topic needs to at least cover one of the thematic tracks that were presented and at least one of the technologies foreseen in the grant. Obviously, the proposal must be submitted in English because language problems. Next slide, please. So the topics, thematic tracks are already presented, reducing carbon footprint in dietary behavior, the role of food in holistic human well-being, and rethinking the food chain in our environment. Under that, you can find some possible challenges that were already presented, so I'm not going to develop more on this, and the 3 technologies that we want you to take into consideration. Next slide. Okay. What we want from the artists selected, first of all, we want a scenario. So our representation of this scenario can be text, podcast, visual representation, can be pretty much everything that will be developed in the 3rd month of the program. And one artwork that will be at the end of the program residency, describing the scenario that it was developed. What we expect from the participant is to have the possibility to travel to the partners institution to receive the teachings and the information about for the program, provide this narrative of the scenario, and for the second part, follow and mentor the team during the second open call, second part of the program, and develop an artwork respecting the condition presented before. Let's remind that it's one thematic track and one technology at least. Next slide, please. For the criteria evaluation, we have 3 main criteria that are going to be evaluated on each proposal. The criteria of excellence, impact, and implementation. Each can receive a score from 1 to 5. So the minimum that you will receive can be 3. Yeah. And the highest you can receive is 15. In case of parity between the evaluation, it will be decided based on the highest criteria, highest score of the criteria. First of all, criteria impact will receive will be based on that. So in case of parity between overall the score, if the criteria of impact is highest in one, it will be based on that, the selection. That's all for this slide. Next one. The evaluation process. There will be, first of all, the proposal submission that will be evaluated by the eligibility criteria. So see if this proposal and the person is eligible for the funding. A remote evaluation that will be based on the criteria already presented. A consensus meeting where the expert committee will decide a selection of 15 proposals. And then the jury day that will be with personal interview and the selection of the final 10 artists that that will be selected. So, and then the selected proposal will be with the agreement. So we will have you sign the agreement for for taking part in this project, and public dissemination. Next slide, please. Okay. So how do you apply for the open call? First of all, you need to apply on the platform F6S. Inside the platform, you will be asked to register your company or yourself, and it's already automatic. Then go to the MUSAE Open Call that it's linked here, and apply by responding to the question that will be asked. Please remember to have a CV updated and a portfolio with projects that could be related to your choice of proposal. No, it's okay. It was okay to change. Thank you. Let's talk about the question. As a general, we have 5 main sections. We have the artist information. This is important to check the eligibility criteria. Then we have the main information about your proposal. The proposal itself, so description of the proposal that you will represent and so on. We want to ask you to have a budget, provide a budget with the general identification on how you are going to spend the money. Inside the questionnaire, you will see a bit more information on how to fill it in. But in general, you have personal costs, other costs, travel, and direct costs. Finally, you can add your portfolio. The first one is mandatory. You have the second option to add another one, but it's just in case, but you have something more you want to propose. And it's important to know that it needs to be a PDF, so maximum 2 PDF. And each PDF should be at maximum 30 megabytes. Next slide, please. So final information, the deadline is the 5th of June at 12 Central Time. Any application received after the deadline or through other channels will not be considered. So please follow this procedure and we will respond to you. In case you have more questions or you are having problems in filling the questionnaire form, please contact us to info@made.cc.eu. Next slide, but thank you, and we can pass to the question and answer.
That's great. Thank you, Octavia, and thank you all of the speakers. I hope that that gives everyone an overview of the MUSAE first open call. So it's now the Q&A session. So I'm just going to go up to the questions and I will read them out. So we have a couple of questions in our Q&A box. So the first question, which I might direct to Tatiana. So what are your expectations for the scenarios and artworks as a result of the residency? And does it need to provide an answer to the track, or can it also provide a perspective change or paradigm change to inspire new approaches, designs, or innovations? So I might ask that to Tatiana, or Marita might jump in as well.
Sure. Yeah, we can answer. Yeah, we are not asking for solutions per se, because the first residency is to sort of open up our perspective on these topics. So this is exactly why we don't ask for answers or solutions to being developed here, but exactly as you said, to have new alternative ways on looking at these topics that can inspire you paradigm change and change shift, as you said. And then in the second residency, we will try to understand how these new alternative ways of thinking about these topics can inspire new concepts and later on prototypes. So exactly in the first part, we ask more, of course, we have been talking about the method that we have been developing. And in this method, we have some tools and activities that ask you to do some trend research, also analysis with a company. So it will be based on something that is happening nowadays, on the trends that are happening, but still your role here is to question and to critically engage with these topics.
Thank you, Tatiana.
And I think it's important also for the open call. We don't ask for the open call to create a scenario. We ask for a vision of their vision, an artistic vision about the tracks that they will choose. So it's not creating something that have to be concrete or an answer, but also for the open call is their vision about the tracks, critical vision, obviously.
That's great. Thanks. Oh,
Hi, sorry, this is Maria speaking. May I just jump in that I believe that all the participants, just from a pure, let's say, output point of view, just to get an idea of they will have to concretely deliver, they will see in the guide of applicants an annex with all the type of examples in terms of sketches, graphics, website, and prototypes that are requested by the winning proposals. So if you check in the guide of applicants, just in case there are some practical example of the outputs that we are expecting.
And just last things that for creating the final scenarios, we will provide instructions during the residency. So don't worry about this. You will be guided by us and by all the partners through this process to arrive to these scenarios, to build these scenarios.
thanks, Marita. So I think the next couple of questions will kind of been answered with the last one, but I'll just read them out anyway. So the next question is, so does the final deliverable need to include explaining how the problem could be solved or overcome and not a working physical digital prototype? Is it correct, or does it involve developing a prototype too? So maybe Marita, you'd like to clarify that?
Yeah, it's correct. They don't have to create a prototype. Mm-hmm. They have to create for the first open call their vision, and then for the first residency a scenario. Scenario means create a vision of about the tracks or specific topic, because they will explore a specific topic in the tracks that they will choose, and provide an explanation, a text, and their critical reflection. Because starting from these scenarios, in the second open call, they have to develop concepts. And then the last part of the project will provide the guide on prototyping. But for now, no prototyping.
Great, thanks, Marita. Another question then I might direct it to Ottavia or Maria. Do artists need to scope budgets quite specifically, given that they don't yet know what outcomes will be?
Yeah, the answer is yes, indeed. When you go in the budget section of the proposals, you will see that we are reflecting basically the budget cost typically used in European project. You will have to describe the portion of personnel, travel, other costs, and indirect costs. And these, even if it is a lump sum proposals, it is important for us to evaluate the capacity of the budget capacity of the partners and its implementation. At the same time, I also remind you that in the implementation and impact part and the impact part inside the proposals, we kindly ask you to, let's say, try to think about what type of outcomes will be. And again, the outcomes that we are expecting are really deeply described in the guide of applicants. So I strongly encourage you to think, even at the proposal stage, to the type of again, outputs or prototypes you would like to extend.
Thanks, Maria. Just another question in relation to the artwork. So in the proposal, does the artwork need to be explained on how it will look at the end? So maybe Tatiana, you could answer that one. Do they need to describe their artwork and how it will look at the end in the proposal?
The artwork, no, because you apply just with a critical vision, and the critical vision is sort of a very free form. It is a text of your vision about the topic, and also not really how the technologies can be applied in this track, thematic track that you choose, but more how you can critically view the impact of the technologies in your vision and in the thematic track. And then throughout the process, as Marita was saying, we will mentor you, guide you, go through the process to create the scenario, the final scenario at the end of the first residency. And then from that scenario, you will proceed in creating the artwork related to your scenario. So the artwork will be, you don't need to explain it now because probably you don't know what your scenario will be. So obviously you cannot predict what kind of artwork you will create. So the artwork is sort of the output of the first residency, which will be exhibited in the end. And in the proposal, yes, it's just your reflection. We want really to see how you see the future of the thematic tracks that you're applying with, and sort of the challenges and opportunities in general in these thematic tracks.
Great, thanks, Tatiana. And then just one final question was in relation to, is there an examples of a winning proposal? Or can we find that somewhere?
Can I jump in? I would say that we will see, because we still don't have a winning proposal, and as Tatiana was suggesting, it's all based on your critical vision and your artistic idea. So the answer is that we don't have an example of winning proposal, especially from an artistic base point of view. I hope we will have many more, and we can inspire new one after, let's say, after this summer.
Great, thanks, Maria. So that is all the questions that were put into the Q&A. So at that, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for joining the webinar this morning, and I hope you found it informative and that we've answered the questions in relation to the first open call. And if you have any further queries on it, we do have all the information on our website. Oh, I've just one final question before I wrap it up. I'll just take this last one and then we'll wrap. So it's, can you put some examples about the art-driven method? Maybe I'll direct that to Tatiana and Marita.
Yeah, actually, this is a very new method that we are developing, so we cannot give spoilers right now, but basically it's the merging of design futures method. Design futures method is a combination of design thinking and future thinking methods. So it's how to develop the concepts of the future products and services based on the futures methodologies. And futures methodologies is where you look for specific trends, you try to imagine alternative futures, you try to build some different scenarios, what we'll be doing, and then within that, you try to elaborate on new innovative concepts that could emerge. And in our case, we are merging this with art thinking, which is more taking up the emotional part from how artists approach their work and developing new solutions. So we are trying to merge this very two strategic and also very emotional sort of driven methods together. So how we can bring this criticality, reflection, these emotions also to the companies on the strategic level. So this is something new, and you don't need this in order to apply for our open call, the first one. But this is just to give you a hint of how it will look like when actually, if you're selected, you will be engaged in during the residency.
Yeah, it's a very structured method implemented by or enriched by the artistic vision, and this will be a path and is with different steps in which artists will be followed by us, and they will have a companion. we called this approach with the AI that will support this process. And so the emotional path will be enriched by the AI approach also. And so they will learn this approach. We will follow in the first week. We will train them all together. They will be here in Polimi together, and we will train them with these methods, applying these methods in few weeks to explain how it works.
And maybe just to add on that, just very briefly, also we are looking for an artist and participants who are open to experiment with new methods. Because of course, as Marita said, it's quite structured process and method, but it's also we are looking how to co-create together with an artist. And for that, we need artists to engage in our activities that we are developing. So this is, we would say, is very, very important for us in order to have a successful collaboration during the residency. And then also, yes, because throughout the project is for 3 years, and we have few times that will be developed, like updating, let's say, this method. So after the first residency, we will update and elaborate on what we have learned from you, from the working together with an artist. Then we'll improve it, and then 3 more times we will do the same, because it's very challenging task to create this kind of model, to establish this collaboration between artists and companies, and that's why we need to learn from each other.
That's great. Thanks, everybody. So again, I'd just like to thank you all for attending the webinar today. And someone just asked, would this be recorded? Yes, the webinar will be recorded and it will be put onto the MUSAE website. So thanks again. And if anyone would like any more information, we are hosting another webinar on the 22nd. So next Monday at 11 a.m. Central Eastern Time. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you and bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.